Please enjoy.
Great, thanks, Devi. And maybe just before you start, Marita, it's so nice to see you again, and it was a real pleasure to see that you were speaking. And it's just lovely to see how many people from South America we have, and we have Magella that's also here. That she's been attending just about every single session for the last 6 months or so. Magella, I'd just love to introduce you to Marita. Also, maybe you know each other. So anyway, thank you, thank you. And then Vanessa, yeah, hi, Magella. Okay. All right, great. So we'll let's try to get started. I know we look forward to some of the news that you're sharing. It really feels like Marita has grown so much from when we first met to where you are now. It really seems like last year you've exploded. Things have gone really well for you. So congratulations. It's so nice to see you doing well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, it's a real pleasure and so happy to be here with you with this beautiful group. And at the same time, I feel your kindness and your welcoming. So I feel very, very good.
Thank you very much.
So let's begin. Well, we will talk today. Vanessa and me will talk today about how to gather the strategy, the data strategy to the business, how the data strategy meets the business growth. So our phrase, our statements in our jobs are, you can grow until you have a good data that work with a good process. So my name is Marita One for the people who don't know me yet. I am the CEO of Cyclus Group, a Peruvian and American company. I define myself as a data-driven business architect. Vanessa, please, you present yourself. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Tarazona. I'm the CEO of Nova Mind Consultant, and we support companies with data and product analytics throughout the Americas.
Nice.
Thank you. Well, I like to begin always with some inspiration. Maybe the fashion word today and the something important is the sustainability. So the definition is almost respecting the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the capabilities of the future generation. So if we have sons, if we have family, if we have child, we want to see them to grow up very good. And the sustainability have three perspectives, no? The economic growth, the environmental protection, and the social well-being, in order to have this child to see him growing and to be good. We expect to develop a good world, a good life for our child. So when I was investigating about this of this and all my experience working with B2B market, I see a very common challenge: the cooperative groups, the challenge of the cooperative groups and the sustainability management. So I will take an example of a company, a Peruvian cooperative group that have 15 companies around 35 offices around America, South America and North America. To see it from the financial perspective, the environmental perspective, and the social perspective. So the challenges of the sustainability are integrate some of the challenges, integration of sustainability into governance structures and strategy. This phrase make me remember the challenge of data governance. That data governance we have to introduce into the governance structure and the strategy of the company. It's not a part. Another challenge is the definition of the sustainability objectives and to monitor the progress through a dashboard, through anything but to monitor the progress. But what is the reality? The reality is that we have what I see in many places, many companies, is that we have an Excel puzzle. An Excel puzzle to manage financial, to manage sustainability, and to manage the growing of the people in the company. And what is another challenge, another big challenge? To gather and automate the right information. And as I say at the beginning, to govern the data. No? If somebody wants to say something, can do it, okay? So, and the financial objective, Howard.
Yes, sorry. I don't know if you'd like me to ask questions later on or now. Is that
Whatever you want.
Okay. One of the
At any
things
time.
I really like what you're talking about because we've had someone on the webinars that spoke about all the integration with the different ESG taxonomies. And he said there's many of the different ones, and aligning it to the right one and choosing the right one is also a bit of a nightmare and a difficult situation as well.
Yeah, well, right now I won't talk about because I will try to talk about strategy architecture. I can do it. I can do it, but
Okay,
maybe
no problem.
it could be longer.
Okay,
Maybe
I think so.
another day, and maybe it could take this chapter, this concept of sustainability is very ambitious.
Right.
And have many things about the data. I talk of this because we work in one project and we found all the things that you say, the taxonomy, a long, a lot of quantity of people that work with this data. So we find some ways, some disrupting ways to help this company in this.
Okay.
And solve the taxonomy challenges too. Well, in the financial objectives, we have the profit, revenue, operational efficiency, risk management, environmental carbon footprint, reduce emissions, energy waste, so any sustainable resource to use to measure the consumes. In the social, there are many perspectives of social objective. This time I choose providing equitable wages, diversity and inclusion, and retention. Maybe retention is not exactly a ratio of sustainability, but it works a lot with this, with profitability. So it's something very important in this way. Looking for the finance, looking for the growing of the company. And the growing of the company is the basic part of the sustainability because the company gives jobs. As more jobs, as more people working, the company, more good people with the good profile working, the company will grow and will give more jobs to the country. So what was the current situation of one cooperative group? Well, each company, this group, as I said, have 35 offices, 15 companies around America. So each company obtained the financial reports from the ERP, but You know, I don't know if you have another experience, but the 100% of the companies that I visited in my job, all of them do this. Reclassifications, add another business rules, and the ERP doesn't have all the business rules that they need.
Yeah.
So they finally prepare the financial statements in Excel. Successfully exist Excel. But so this is a manual job. Then in the organization, there is a sustainability coordinator of the continent. Each company is sent the information to this coordinator. They review and validate, and if there is something to correct, they do it. So this coordinator gathered the reports of their zone, of their continents, North America, South America, Peru. Then this coordinator sent the final financial statements to the cooperative group, and they add in this place the intercompany accounts. So they eliminate some accounts, the operations together around the companies of the group. So finally, they generate the consolidated financial statements. So how did we change this? This part cannot do anything until this reclassification of this manual situation would solve. But we designed a data lake house. We will not profound on the components. Maybe you know it too. So this is something very important, something that people sometimes do not know how to do it, the domains. So in this aspect, in the financial information, we have one domain for each country in South America and Peru. But we divided each domain in accounting domain and finance domain. It's the same data. There's a different way of agrupation, a different way to see it. So we sent this information, all this data by these domains to the lakehouse. And in the processing stage of the lakehouse, we do that elimination of intercompany accounts. And finally, we have the domain of the corporative financial statements. So the reports, the information that we can find is the corporative, the financial statements, the ratios, and each information of the country and the company and the continents, and the information of Peru too. So this data lakehouse changed the other manual job in the company. In this job, we're working many persons with the possibility of mistakes in any part of the process. Okay, so right now let's go to the se colgó. Let me see a moment.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Marita.
Sorry, Marita, I believe you're on mute.
Sorry, Marita, you're on mute.
Oh, okay.
There we go. We lost you as you disconnected your presentation and then went back on the environmental thing. So we lost a couple of slides.
Yeah, it's because I have some problems with presentation mode.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so that's why. Well, what I'm saying is that this was the latest environmental process to the measures. So they work with one drive, with one Google Drive, and each person of each company use data entry and scan the document because the rules of GRE, they need the measures, the quantities, and the documents scans to have the evidence of the measure. Oh, dejé de compartir.
No.
¿Sí se ve?
Sí se veía, ya no.
Se movió. It moves. Ahora, right now?
Yes.
It's okay. We can see.
Okay. So there are people with fuel documents, the fugitive emissions, electricity, water, and they have all the invoices of these resources. So they scan the invoices and the certificates of the waste and introduce it to the Google Drive, and the numbers too, the number of the soles or dollars and the number of the consume. So they send this information to the coordinator. The coordinator review and validate, and then they have the continental report. So they send to Peru. Peru has their own data, and then they prepare the global report. So with this work, in this drive, that work a lot of persons, they produce the environmental KPIs and the carbon footprint. The problems they used to have is the information arrives late, arrives bad. People, all the people do not know what the environmental information is. So they really had good problems. And many of the cooperative groups, there are in the stock exchange, Bolsa de Valores de Lima, the stock exchange of Lima. So they need this information very good. Well, they finally, the environmental committee analyze the metrics, get insights, and they take improvement actions. What did we, well, I will do another thing. I won't put in, I won't use presentation. Sorry. Well, do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, it's time to disrupt. It's time to disrupt and to work with another technology. And we found a system that is called iControl. It's an IoT system for real-time measurement and control our resources, water, gas, and electricity. And these sensors will connect with the energy, the gas, and the water meters. So this way, we reduce the quantity of persons with whom we have to coordinate. So the eye control sends the information through the cloud, and they can find all the metrics in one platform. In this way, this sensor control the gas flow, the energy flow, the water, the light sensor, and also they can tell you in real time what are the consumes of this and work about it. What did we plan? We plan for the rest of the documents, because this was the eye control was to replace.
Sorry, Marita. We can see environmental process slide on our screen. Are you looking at a different slide?
I didn't listen very well.
We can see environmental process slide, the one with the Google Drives. Are you looking at a different slide?
It seems like you've moved forward on.
This first of all, I am presenting the technology, and then I will present the process.
Oh, no, Marita, se congeló, creo. Entonces, en environmental process. En esa diapositiva.
¿Tú crees que lo puedes compartir tú porque tengo problemas para hacer la presentación?
Okay, let me try.
I'm saying, Vanessa, that maybe she can do the presentation,
Right.
because I cannot move it.
Stop sharing, Marita.
Yeah.
Okay. That's eye control. We can see eye control now, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I was saying is that it's time to disrupt. So we choose two different technologies to help these people. And first, the first one was the eye control. It's an IoT system for real-time measurements and control of resources, water, gas, and electricity. So these sensors will connect to the energy, gas, and water meters. Okay, so this will replace the invoices. The invoices will go on too, but this will give us the real information from the meters of the gas, the energy, and the water. Then there is another, it's a feature of GCP, that is the document AI. It's part of the service of GCP, that they can read the documents by OCR to obtain structured data from unstructured data. So using these technologies, we can help the people to change the process they had before. ¿Lo avanzas, Vanesita? So this is the eye control. The eye control will work with a water meter, with the energy meter, and the gas flow meter. Avanza, por favor. Okay, sigue avanzando. So in case of the invoices of fuel, fugitive emissions, and waste, we have in any case we have the invoices. We cannot change by everything, but we scanner the document, we introduce it to the stage phase in the data lakehouse. So using the document AI read the documents and convert the unstructured data to structured data. The gas, the electricity, and water we will change the way of measure, and we will use from the meters, from the water meter, the electricity meter, the gas meter. So this information from these reports we ingest to the data lake too. And finally, we have all the information, the measurements, the metrics, the calculation will change a little bit because of the using of the meters, but it will be easier and will we use less people to do this job. So the domains of each country continue being the country, but each domain divides of the offices, any office, any place, and the metrics of each country. Then we send all the information to the processing stage to get the domain of the corporative sustainability metrics in the group. So what I say is that it's very important to define a good domain in order to each country has the right information, and the corporative group has the right information too, because finally they will have basically the metrics, not the data at the origin that is here. Using this way, this technology will reduce time of the people, where we save time of the people, and we obtain the carbon footprint, the delta carbon footprint, so the improvement, water metrics, energy metrics, fugitive emission metrics, and the percentage of the improvements and the reductions. The dimensions that we use: corporative group, continent, country, and office. And if we want another dimension, we can gather another data of each country. As you see, this is an organized method that using disruptive technology, we can change the job of many persons. Avanza, Vanesita. Well, Howard.
Yeah, I'm fascinated in terms of did you almost how many people did you decrease, or what was the sort of time frames that you improved from doing it all manually to doing it like this, and the quality must have gone up tremendously as well.
Well, at first the people was that in this way we using the eye control, the reduce was for 30 people at least.
Right.
And then the other ones that have the invoices and certificates of the fuel and the fugitive emissions, they were around 60 persons.
Wow.
That they have to, we assign coordinators to the documents. So basically they scan the documents, but they were not responsible to introduce the number. But the coordinators, another coordinator, have to validate what the OCR is reading.
Right.
It's not only an automatic
Right.
process only, but there's somebody that has to review too. So finally, making all the business case, this inversion is is very productive.
Right.
It's a good inversion.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
William, you got a question?
Yeah, so Marita, this is really interesting because it speaks a lot into the stuff I've just been doing at the nuclear power plant.
Hi.
Quick question. Different countries have different rules around which products, etc., can be sold in their different areas and so on and so forth, as well as the calibration regulation, whether it's going to be in feet or in meters, or there are different standards and so on and so forth. How did you deal with that across so many different countries on the Internet of Things?
How do I feel with across what?
No. How did you deal with the fact that different countries had different instrumentation, they had different calibrations, they had different things from their different plants and so on and so forth?
Different calibrations.
Yeah, for the instruments.
Well, this is not a job of very few persons. This is a very holistic job. The work that the responsible of the meters, of the water, the work, all the person around this. This is not only an information technology solution. Any person in all the company, the manager of talent, the manager of operations, the manager of service, they have their own accounts, their own responsibility. So they have to calibrate of that.
Yeah.
If I understand your question, because I don't listen very well.
Yeah, that was my experience as well. Howard, what happened in our area is that we moved a lot of work into the Internet of Things space for calibration, maintenance of ensuring that the data was right. Oh, this particular meter is no longer operating correctly, etc. So there was a management of the Internet of Things and that data that we had to move people to. So it's not a case that you just lose people on the administration side.
No, understand.
Yeah.
No, understand. It's they're two different things. There's lots of reduction on people in terms of getting the data in, but then there's also standardization of instrumentation and accuracy that also needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, and the fact that there's a lot more instrumentation and therefore a lot more management of that instrument.
Yeah. Okay.
Apart from that, there is a solution. There is a help solution of that situation. If you have some standards, facts and standards numbers, you said this number should be in this interval. No, we can use some AI to measure if the value is in this interval.
Right.
In order to help you to say to you if the instrument is calibrated or not. But it's an indicator, not a solution. It's a help.
Yeah.
But I see I like this case too very much because it demands the participation of and the commitment of many people. So if you reduce the quantity of people to this and you achieve the upskilling of the persons to learn about sustainability, we will get a lot.
Thank you.
And this is time, and this is a case to apply the disruptive technologies. And when you change the way of working like this, it's very important to monitor, to focus on the people, on the solution, on the implementation, to get better and better. Dale, continúa, Vanesita.
Yeah.
Then we will talk about the social perspective, very different from the others. When we talk about the life cycle of one employee, we begin with the recruiting, the welcome, the development, the rotation, and the part of separation. I like to say that always in case of retention, not everything is only good climate or motivation or inspiration. I see that many of the right now the reasons why is the millennials and the people like to stay in one company is how are you challenging me, the growing challenges. And the companies have to organize this. Continue, please. Does somebody want to ask a question?
Yes, there was a question from Bronwyn asking if you ran the project with a change manager. So there seemed to be quite a lot of changes. You must have had a change manager on board.
Yeah, the change management is like the phrase of the culture, it's strategy. I didn't talk here about the change management, but it's a very, very, very important part of any of the projects.
Okay.
And a good strategy to change management is to let the right people, to participate in the project. Do that the people feel that they own the project, they own the solution, they define the solution. When you forget some person when you do not gather all the people because of time, because of the opportunity, because always the projects have time, when you forget somebody, you will have somebody that will fight with your project. So the change management begins at the beginning, including all the persons. Well, finally, so there are many challenges with the people. The retention right now is a terrific challenge. So we have the information, the human resources of the IT systems, the work environment survey, the feedback meeting of the boss, of each each manager. So we put all this information in the lakehouse. And then once again, we have each domain of each country, and that domain divides of personal data, all the movements of the data, the day they enter, the movements, the salary, the survey reports, feedback meeting, and the metrics. So we use the processing stage to the metrics, and we have the domain of the cooperative people metrics. So the first metrics are the length of service, how long the people stay in the company, the staff turnover, the professional growing. This is very important. This is not a simple metric, but it refers to this, and the movements, the improvement of the work environment index, the percentage of female employee, and a retention index, a very particular retention index that includes time, growing, feedback, and qualification. And why this? Because the cooperative group have to ideal profile of the employee group, because we want that the company, the group grows. So to grow a company, to let grow a company, we need a personnel with certain profile. So this information fits this ideal profile that is something that the people will learn continually to finally find a good profile of one employee. And to finish, Vanesita, la última, faltan dos. And finally, we have the cooperative lakehouse, where we obtain all the metrics. And the next one. And then, well, there was next one. And then we can use, we can mix and include another processing area to get data products from all this information. So look, this is not a simple job. It's something very detailed that it is possible. And all the groups can have the sustainability metrics as they need. It's sure that what you say, that we need the change management, we need all the definitions, we need the right people to do the right job. Okay, there is a question.
William?
And then Vanessa.
Yeah, Marita, this is really good. You know, one of the biggest challenges that you face when you start to introduce Internet of Things and you bring those metrics in is which business processes are going to continue to work off what's coming off your equipment, and which business processes are going to run off the old documentation system, because they have different latencies, right? Your stuff coming off the Internet of Things is going to come through very fast, and so your numbers will be different when you're looking at it, when you're comparing from a process that's running off that versus a process that's still running off the old one. You have to get into in the change management side, you have to get into people's minds that actually there's going to be a time where things are not going to necessarily match up and marry up until you actually all get everybody across.
Well, finally, Vanessa, ayúdame que no entendí muy bien.
Yo escuché un ruidito al fondo que tampoco escuché muy bien.
Sí, no, there's a scratch that I didn't listen very well.
Marita, I think the question is when you were transferring from the new system or the old system to the new, you must have done it in stages. And then whilst you're busy transferring, some of them on the new, some of them on the old, you got lots of different timings. And so you're having old timing issues as well. So the transition must have been difficult as well.
The transition is another challenge. I presented here something very simple because it is simple, but you know, one of my concepts is transform the complex to the simple.
Right.
And we have to do it simple. You have to do a very specific and detailed plan to transition.
Right.
And maybe to have to do an MVP of this transition, and to help to work with the people, with the correct people. And if they are persons that they don't have the right skills, you have to teach them.
Right.
And in many of my business consulting, I found people that they have a lot of commitment, but they don't have the right skills. So we have to teach them.
Yeah.
And as they learn, that change management is better, is good.
Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Here is Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marita. All yours,
Thank
Vanessa.
you very much.
Hi, thank you. Nice presentation, Marita. So I'm going to talk about credit card fraud. Most of my experience has been in banking, and now I help banks build new models and analytics so that we can see how we can enhance and minimize the risk exposure, right? So in this case, we're going to talk from fraud perspectives, but looking beyond the losses that we may face when we are subject to fraud. Reports said that in 2022, we had 33 billion losses worldwide because of credit card fraud, right? So this is not a small area of opportunity that we're looking at. And with the appearance of AGI and new methods, hackers, criminals always get creative to get the best of us and to try to draw funds from our accounts. So when we look at the impact, we normally think of three actors, correct? The first one would be credit card companies. We are looking at the damage of the reputation because it's not just the loss that we're facing, but also the fact that you feel not comfortable again on dealing with these companies. The second one is the financial cost, of course, because there has to be fraud mitigation measures that they need to implement to help the customers keep their money safe. And of course, the erosion of trust, as this fraud remains and is recurring with an institution, or if it is a big data breach, then there is going to be a bigger exposure, right? And that's bad press for the company and bad news for everyone else that is involved. Also, we have the merchants, which are the point of sale, the retailers, with whom you face issues, because if you have purchased something at their store and then as a result of that, and you get hacked into your credit card or you get new misleading transactions, then of course you're going to feel that you cannot trust, you cannot come back to that merchant. Thus, they fed the decrease of sales. Also, we have the consumers who, as a group, we start facing collective distrust and long-term financial strain because of all the losses. In a world where we build it with trust, the consequences of fraud go far beyond the financial losses, right? They create deep emotional wound that lingers long after the transaction is reversed. And this is just a reality. This is the psychological aspect that many times we don't talk about. I don't know if anyone has been victim of credit card fraud, but when you are, I see people that is shaken because of that, right? It's something that you don't expect that it will happen to you. You hear about it, but it will never happen to you. At least you hope. So when we're looking what happens, this is a psychological aspect behind the fraud, the betrayal of trust. I cannot trust this entity anymore. You lose the sense of security many times on the credit card industry, on the financial system, or just on your credit card company or on your bank, right? You have stress and anxiety because, of course, depending on the size of the fraud amount, you still have to pay it. It's not like you're not going to pay it. You have to pay it while the issue gets resolved, right? Those are the credit card rules, unless the bank says, okay, I'm going to pay this for you in the interim. After the resolution, we'll decide. But at least in South America, in North America, it tends to be like that. I have my Canadian bank, and they're good. If there is a fraud, they take care of it and then let me know at the end of the resolution. But in South America, the rules are different. Here, many times they tell you, okay, you have to pay while we resolve, and after that, we'll let you know if we'll refund you.
Wow.
Right, so that just adds to the stress of the person and the financial strain that I was talking about. And also, because of this, you may face financial hardship, right? I had once a credit card fraud event with one of my Peruvian cards, and it was incredible. Like, they were trying to get me to pay, and this is how I learned the hard way. And so, unfortunately, most of my career has been in the financial industry. So we got to talking to the customer service about bins that have been hacked and everything else, and they paid for me. And at the end, I didn't get charged because it was a fraud. The credit card was in my safe, very secure. I didn't do any purchase. So it was good, but still, all that exhausts the person, right? It's not about the money. It's about the peace of mind of your customers. So what's the challenge of this particular company that we were working with? The credit card fraud cost they were facing was 2.5 million annually. It's not a small amount. Out of your revenue, credit card fraud can be between 0.5% to 2.5%, depending on the region, depending on the country, and the security systems that you have, right? So this is a large amount that we are looking at. The goal was to design a data architecture to support advanced fraud detection algorithms. Okay, so we had a data architecture today. The company had one, but it wasn't responding to the speed and the needs of the evolving market. What we did was implement a data lakehouse architecture, right? This implementation helped them become more responsive, and I'm going to explain how. And the key benefit from this implementation was a unified analytics platform that combined the flexibility of the data lakes, like we have seen, but with the performance that we used to have from the data warehouses, right? So that way I have flexibility, I have of my data, but I have responsiveness in terms of time. So this is the data strategy. When we start, we cannot just say, let's implement and let's go. Of course not, because then something may come out at the end that is not exactly what we want. We have to tie this back to the business objective. So what do we want to do? Let's be realistic. Reduce fraud by 35% within 18 months of implementation. That's a big target. Is it possible? Yes. It's achievable? Of course. Right? Minimize the number of false positives. This means optimize operational efficiency, because otherwise you have your agents looking at things that they shouldn't be looking at. So we have to reduce that in a 1-to-10 ratio. We have to meet the evolving PCI, credit card, and money laundering requirements, of course. We cannot dismiss or let go of those because we have to be compliant. And automate 80% of routine fraud investigations, right? So the algorithm on the back end also have to do the review of all the cases that are coming in. To understand what we're going to do, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the types of credit card fraud, so I'm just going to explain them or give a brief overview. The first one is, of course, the most obvious. Your credit card gets stolen, gets lost, and somebody takes it over from there, right? The second one is when somebody actually is going after your data to perform criminal activity, right? The actor obtains credit card information, what they need, the card number, the expiration date, the CVV, and of course, they start using your credit card online, e-commerce, purchased by anything that you don't have to be with your credit card present. The third one is what we call account takeover fraud. In this case, the actor goes one step further, where they actually try to take over your full account, right? What does this mean? This means that they take over some part of your identity. So there is identity theft or phishing, and through that, they gain access to your data. And then what they do, they go in and they may ask for another credit card on your behalf, but of course, sent to their address, they just start changing the verification, the passcodes, the emails, and everything else that is required. So when they do the transaction, it looks legitimate. The application fraud, it means that somebody impersonates you and is applying for a credit card in your name. Skimming involves small electronic devices, right? The skimmer, where you put your credit card and they steal all of your data from your chip or your magnetic stripe, right? The magnetic stripe is much more sensible to this skimmer than this chip, but it's not impossible to break it. Right? And finally, the phishing and the vision. In this case, you get phone calls from fraudsters trying to take on your information, right? They start tricking you on messages so that you can start revealing your credit card information. So for example, they tell you you're applying for a free price, and then you have to put in, they start asking you those validation questions that the banks ask you, right? To get your confirmation on your PIN or your account. So that's basically the phishing, and the phishing is the same, but by email, by phone, by voice.
Okay.
Once we understood this, we know the type of frauds that can exist. We understand that now. What data do we need? How can we take action on this one? Well, we need first, of course, patterns, because if we're going to start building models, odds are they're going to be machine learning or supported by AGI, right? So these models serve us to build the baseline for our customer behavior and identity. The second category is the transaction data. We need to identify the data, the merchant information, to confirm who is the actors that are having the most amount of fraud. Customer behavior data. We look at spending patterns, cardholder information, device information, right? They normally deal, and you see when you log into your account, somebody else has access. It may be you've traveled from a different location, right? Device information, your purchase history, your likes, your dislike, and if you have had any past fraudulent activity on your account. The car information, of course, and any security flags that may be happening. The behavioral metrics, right? This is the anomalies. You have seen that, for example, Visa, MasterCard, sometimes when you interact with the interface, they don't just let you use the bank interface, but it comes up like powered by Visa on the screen. The reason for this is because they are using behavioral biometrics. It means that they are taking how fast you type the card number, how fast you write your email, if you go in, out, down, up, right? All this is data. This is consumer behavior. People sometimes, when you don't remember your email, you're struggling, you delete, you type, right? So that's one of the ways that they have to capture this information. Yes, Howard.
Yes, so I wanted to ask you, what I noticed the last time when I went to America, they started changing the order of the numeric keypads, and it confused me in the beginning because I was getting them wrong and I couldn't understand it. Is that part of what we're talking about now?
Yes, that's part of the security features.
Okay, thank you.
And it also has to do with the stopping the bots, right? The bots, the hackers from Russia, very well known. They go in and they use the pattern, but if the pattern is different, then the bot doesn't read that.
Okay.
Because that's in a different level of the screen. The bot interacts with the website. This one is in an upper layer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is basically the behavioral biometrics. And when you're interacting with your phone, it may even say if you hold your phone like this or your phone like this, right? So how do you type? When we don't see, when we need glasses and we don't have them, we type like this sometimes. If not, we're typing like this. So that all that is captured to understand who you are, to see if somebody else does it differently, then it comes with a flag. The risk profiling data, of course, the customer risk profile. If I am a big traveler and I have fraudulent activity from different countries, it's a riskier profile, right? A person that travels a lot is a riskier profile because the fraud may be happening. It may be a real transaction. You never know. Whereas a person that is always in the same location, it's easier to track when something is off, right? The risk scoring also, when we get onboarded into an FI, we get a risk score, all of us, not just credit, but also operational and money laundering score, right? What's the risk of us doing money laundering activity? So that comes into play. And any other fraud. So the car industry exchange amongst themselves a lot of information in terms of patterns, right? This is a new pattern that is coming in because we don't want the fraud to happen. Amongst all of them, the best interest of the combined ecosystem is to minimize fraud. So this is the data. So now we go into the lakehouse architecture. How are we going to build? The core principle is that it combines data lake storage with data warehouse capabilities, right? What's the thing with data lakes? Data lakes are very good at taking in all of the information. I ingest it. However, when I want to be responsive, meaning process a transaction in seconds to give me a response, it has a problem because the data lake has data that is not necessarily structured or isn't structured, and all the activity is not pre-processed. It's happening all real time and it's coming in together to give you the response. The data warehouses, however, have jobs to have some pre-processed calculations that can give you faster responsiveness. The data lakehouse has a combination of both, right? So you have like middle houses within the lake. In each one, you have pre-calculated things. You have jobs that can do this transformation very quickly, taking in the information from the full data lake, right? Unlike the other one where you have the data lake and you have to warehouse here, and you're doing partial. So that is the change. Also, the data lakehouse allows you for one single governance. So when you do data governance and you implement in data lakehouse, it allows you for a single infrastructure for everything. Everything comes in and everything is governed. No, the storage formats are very open. You can choose whatever makes sense. In this case, well, we went with data lake, but it was just a decision of cost versus the responsiveness and the specific functionalities that the company needed. The ACID transaction test, right? So if we know what ACID is first a transaction has to be the atomicity. It means that when you post a transaction, you post everything or you post nothing. There is no way that you can post a partial transaction. That's one of the principles of credit cards. That's why it gets refused or it gets posted. If it gets posted, it has to be posted in all the systems. Otherwise, it's a problem for the payment processor. The consistency, you have to validate the state before and after the transaction, right? So if the transaction happened, there has to be a charge to a credit card account and a payment to a merchant. That has to happen. It has to be consistent on both ends. You cannot charge and not pay or pay and not charge. And it has to be isolated. That's the I, where you may have more people. For example, if you have a dependent that uses a credit card on your account, right? Both of you may do purchases at the same time. It does not mean that one gets posted, the other one doesn't, or the balance is off. No, both of them have to come in at the same time and both of them have to be reflected and taken in. You cannot prioritize. And finally, the durability, that's the D, where once it posted, you cannot reverse it or say, well, it was posting for 5 seconds and it disappeared from my records. It has to be there forever. Right? So with this, we have direct access also to BI tools. We have workload support, and of course, the value of fraud detection in real time. Our architectural layers, well, the raw data ingestion. We transact logs, we do the API data, batch files, everything that requires to bring all the data in. It's cleansed, validated, normalized, at the same time enriched, because many times you're taking information from something into something else and it's incomplete. And the lake base, you have all the data to enrich it so that it's consistent across the lake for any use. And then you have your business-ready data sets, which is any fraud features that you want to design, the model inputs, the reporting views. This is a view of how more or less it would be. From a functional perspective, please, it's not a technical exact perspective. Anything that comes in is connected, ingested, then it's curated, meaning you check for quality, right? It's governed, one data governance for everything. You need your data dictionary for the entire data lakehouse. You cannot have partial dictionary for your activity, otherwise it won't work, right? The rules of the system, if you have contracted the right one, should force you to have everything combined and together. And finally, of course, your analytical service to analyze and predict and to make your business decision. The business decision may be triggered by alerts, right? Fraud alerts, enhanced risk, any fraud investment that you need to make, or even help the police and the law enforcement capture the criminals. And of course, all of this is supported by infrastructure and network security. When I'm looking at the ecosystem, I know that at the beginning I mentioned 3, and that has to do, oh, sorry, Howard, go ahead.
No problem. So that's interesting. So you're actually using the data lake house, which I thought was a combination of a warehouse and a lake, but it's doing SQL transactions. You're doing updates and basically business transactions on the lake house. So you're able to do both, and it's not like a traditional warehouse where that's read only and you don't really change the data.
That's true. Exactly. The data lakehouse has that capability, and even video streaming, right? Like, for example, if you have somebody coming into the bank in the branch, you can read it real time, do the analytics, and revert back alerts.
Okay. Thank you.
When we look at the ecosystem, I know I mentioned at the beginning 3 actors, but that's because those are the ones that we normally think of when we're thinking of fraud. So I wanted to give you a view as to how we started with the mindset, and here it is what's the reality, right? When a consumer makes a purchase, of course, it goes to a merchant or retail store, and then at the back end, there is a payment processor, right? This person takes care of the transaction, ensures the payment on the name of the acquirer. The acquirer is the bank of the merchant, right? Once the acquirer has got the information and the payment processor, they send it to the acquirer first, and then they issuer it as well. The issuer is the bank that issued the credit card for the person, right? These 2 banks may be the same, may not be the same. They also have a third-party tech processor that, of course, takes care of the transaction and takes care of all the checks and validations. Both of them do. Normally, we use third-party tech in banking because there is no way you can use everything that you need for fraud monitoring, for their monitoring in-house, right? And both of them have an insurance company behind them because if there is fraud, somebody has to pay. In this case, we're assuming that it was the same regulator for both of them, right? For the acquirer and for the issuer. When there is not the same regulator, the rules get more complex because each one is subject to the regulation. That's why the banking industry tries to standardize a lot across jurisdictions so that we can deal in a faster way and also make it more feasible for us to see who has the burden, right? So each one of these actors actually face risk. There is no escaping the risk. When we're talking the consumer, of course, we talk about the financial loss, the inconvenience, the identity theft, right? And the identity theft for credit card fraud is just the beginning, because from this, they can go into hacking other accounts, right? And the loss of trust into their bank and their merchants as well. The merchants have something that is called chargeback and penalties, right? When you have a transaction that has been fraudulent, the merchant doesn't get compensated because of that. And they, on top of that, they get penalized, right? They lose the revenue, they have reputational damage. And so they have to incur an increased security and compliance costs. In terms of the issuer, they suffer the direct financial loss, especially if the problem was not a problem with the consumer or with the merchant, right? If there was a break in, the most common one is the hacking of data beans, right? Which happens to most banks, and these are the big data breaches that are announced. So we have the financial loss, they have the increased cost of fraud and regulatory fines and compliance costs. Also, the customer churn, because the customer leaves them. Nobody likes to be subject to fraud or to credit card fraud because of your bank. And the same thing happens for the acquirer. On top of that, they may have penalties from the card networks, right? I didn't draw Visa and MasterCard as a network here, but they're behind all of this. And they somehow, in some ways, help regulating the credit card industry. That's why the credit card industry had the PCI DSS, has more regulations on top than a regular bank. And for the payment processor, which normally we're talking about a thesis, and they have higher operational costs, right? They have stricter monitoring of merchants. They do have requirements when a merchant wants to come into their network. They ask for certain levels of compliance, and they also face reputational risk. So when we have fraud, really, it's not just about 1 or 2 actors. There is a full ecosystem, and that's why the ecosystem comes together to help when we're working on rules, when we're working on inputs. They help you develop those models with additional data. That it comes from trends, it comes from what's happened, so that you can build something that makes more sense and that can be more effective in the industry. In the regulator, we're talking about increased oversight, of course, requirements and help of the law enforcement action. I had this slide, but I think by now we all know why we invest or companies invest in fraud. And it's not something that comes from one, as I said, it is a full ecosystem. The wealth of the consumer is on one end, but there is a full set of actors that get penalties and get penalized because of this. The funny part is when you have to assess which one is higher, right? Which one is higher? I can tell you that in Canada, it's higher. It's cheaper to invest in fraud protection right, and not get hacked than to get hacked, because then you have to pay huge, humongous penalties.
Right.
Based on what I have seen in my past 4 years or 5 years living in Peru, it's cheaper to get fraud, to commit fraud and to get fraudulent than to invest. And this is the work of the regulatory bodies, right? You have to make it more expensive for the company to be subject to fraud than to invest.
And I suppose it's also that thing of the customer now has to suffer the loss and the period of time, so they're not suffering immediately. They covered, and so they, it's not a big issue on their side.
Exactly, it is not suffering immediately. It's not a big issue, and even when it is, I really don't understand why it's not more of a priority. But it should be. To me, it should be, and I have so many arguments here with people, because really it should be. The way things should be is the most important thing is to protect the consumer, because most vulnerable has the least amount of power, right, to make fraud, to prevent the fraud, and the least amount of decision making in terms of the investment size. Here are huge, some of the entities that are the most exposed to fraud, right? E-commerce, of course, because of the online fraud, card not present. Small businesses, because many times there is no money to invest in the infrastructure that is required to protect you. Businesses with high employee turnover. So sometimes we dismiss our staff, but the employees are actually who help make things secure, because they know where the weaknesses are. Also, they are committed to your company, so you don't have opportunity for internal fraud, right? When there is high turnover, there is lower commitment, and more potential that you hire somebody that doesn't share the values. High-risk industries like gambling, for example, are targeted all the time by the hacking industry, because I would call it an industry by now. Brick and mortar retailers with outdated technology, right? They haven't invested. They don't think they have to, but they do. They do, because nowadays nobody is exempt from fraud. And the companies who don't take information security very seriously. So this is me. I'd like to stay in touch with you. There you have my LinkedIn in a QR code mode, so we can connect easy. And well, I thank you very much for your time and the invitation. And thank you, Marita, for getting me involved.
Vanessa, thank you. That was really nice. Something's wrong happened with my camera, but I really enjoyed the presentation, and we'd love to stay in touch. Maybe just to ask the people if there are any questions, if they could raise their hand on Teams, that would be great. I don't see any questions. William, anything from your side?
No, I just want to say outstanding again, Howard. You and your team are really finding good people. So this is really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you to Marita and Vanessa. Really appreciate. I haven't seen many presentations on Data Lakehouse, so that was really nice to see how that development has come along. Well done, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
I do have one particular question on the Data Lakehouse. We had to introduce really low-level security at field level because certain information on the nuclear power plant is nuclear sensitive, right? So you can't allow certain things even to go there. Other things are a little bit easier to do. But how did you apply your various like personal information protection, etc., within the Data Lakehouse? How did you apply that? Did you apply it at field, or because you've got data flows, you've got pipelines, you've got various things running inside there, right? So how did you do that?
Yes, it's an onboarding of the data, right? Once you start getting the data governance rule in, for example, anything that is determined to be personal information will be encrypted right at the onset, and then it will be in the later house, it will be encrypted during the rest of the process.
So is that encrypted on leaving your source system, or is that encrypted on arrival in the data lake?
It's encrypted the variable in the data lake.
And as it arrives. So then it's up to the integration guys to make sure that as the data flows through those pipelines or the integration channels, to make sure SSL is running and all the other things to take the data from source to the lake, right?
Exactly, and you decide, right? Everything is encrypted at rest, but also you have to tokenize. There are things that have been tokenized at the beginning and disguised, right? So that you can deal with the information throughout the process. But yes, William, you got it.
Cool, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Anybody else? Any other questions there? Okay. All right. Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much, Vanessa and Marita. I really appreciate your presentations. And as soon as we get them edited and that, we'll make an announcement on LinkedIn and share everybody's contact details, or we'll actually post with your LinkedIn ID. So hopefully we can see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Sure.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Bye.
Gracias.
Cheers.
Bye.